The whole idea of our company is to buy, refinance tax-free, and hold the property for cash flow, and or roll that into something new, and et cetera. So I was talking at the break. So those of you who have been in properties, 1 to 2 years, 3 years, I would highly encourage you to talk to investors in this room that have been with us for a longer period of time, where some of the business plans have come together, where we've refinanced out, and we have many properties where there's no investment, and we've cashed out completely, right?
Right.
And in fact, was it in December of last year we did the cash out?
December of 14.
December of 14. We did a $36 million cash out refinance, and returned that back to the investors. So, and then also, I want to acknowledge some investors that have come from very, very far away. So, how many from out of the country? Great, big hand, come on. Actually, if you guys could stand up real quick. You Tang, come on. I know you got a broken foot, but Taiwan, right? Okay, you guys flew in from Taiwan. And why don't we just go Canada? 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 Australia? Venezuela? Very good. All right, thanks guys, thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge you guys, thank you. This is, it's not a, like Ross drove 2 hours and bitched. Just kidding, he didn't really. I just want to thank you guys for coming and having that kind of confidence in us. So, and then if you're relatively new in some of our deals, seek out the folks that have been investing with us for a while, and talk a little bit about their experiences. So let's, with that, we're gonna roll right into Tyler. We're gonna start with Charlie. Big hand for Charlie. Come on up, Charlie. All right. So Charlie is gonna walk you guys through the acquisition process. He's literally 2 offices down from me. We go over deals every Tuesday together. He literally gets hundreds of deals in every month, and doesn't look at 100 deals, but get hundreds in every single month. And there's a funnel process of getting these down to onto our desk, so that we have a productive day and try to decide what we're working on. So with that, Charlie, I'll let you go.
Sounds good. So last year, for you guys that were here, I talked about what I saw for the markets, what I saw was much more macro, much more external, what I kind of saw coming for the year. And this year we have the guest speakers that are going to do that. So I'm going to talk more about what we do internally, so you understand our process better. And we also understand that you guys are invested in other deals. You have your own investments. And so this is a way for you guys to get the inner workings of what we kind of look for in deals. What are red flags, what are pros and cons, and how we attack a deal. That way, again, when it shows up on the business plan, you understand the process of how we got there, and hopefully will help with the decision to whether you want to invest or not. I spoke last year about how the market was hot, and it only got hotter. We have seen, again, more equity and more capital chasing deals than we've ever seen before. Prices are, I believe, almost 20% higher than they were pre-recession in 2007. We still believe in the market though, because the fundamentals compared to back then are much stronger. Rent growth, the things that we see that we want to build upon are still pretty stable. A lot of people will talk about oversupply. The numbers that we're seeing, we're still below where we should be on build, which is a positive for us. And also, we believe that we're fairly insulated on a lot of our deals that we do on the acquisition side, because where you're going to see the biggest hit are the giant massive new builds in the core urban areas. And our delta on a lot of our deals between that super high-end Class A, which is where for a lot of times that's all you can build to, versus the deals that a lot of the deals we acquire, that gap is so big between those rents and a lot of the rents that we have that we're pretty insulated from new supply, because no new supply is going to come and can concess enough to come take our tenants. So I just press the forward button. So I want to talk about kind of what I saw last year. And now remember, we had the Tucson 8 for the first 4 months of last year, which from the acquisition standpoint, as a north of $22 million raise pretty much takes up our bandwidth. So the numbers I'm showing you are mostly from April on, to give you some perspective. So last year on my desk, I saw roughly 600 deals that I had to look at. In this market, we talk a lot about we talk sometimes about off-market deals. Those are a great way to buy. In this market, with what we compete in, which is usually 200 units or more, you're dealing with fairly sophisticated investors who understand where the market is, and they're going to want to get it out there and get the bidding process. So at this point in 2015, 2016, finding off-market deals is very, very rare. Most of the sellers know what they're doing, and they want the bidding process and the feeding frenzy. So most of the deals that I see come from the brokers that we are in the markets on. We are continuing to focus on the markets that we are in. We believe in a market that's this hot, unless you have some sort of knowledge of where you're going, you're going to end up on the wrong side of a deal. I always talk about if I was a broker and somebody from Scottsdale, Arizona called me and said, I've never been to your city, I'm coming in, show me your deals. I'm going to show him the 6 deals that my local 100 investors wanted nothing to do with and tell him how great they are. So we're going to stay focused this year on exactly where we are and right where our knowledge base is. So I have the 600 deals come across my desk. Now, of those 600, I can usually wipe out within the first 3 minutes of looking at them that I would say about half of them fit our criteria. I can dump about 300 last year just based on they're in markets that we don't want to be in. They're brand new lease up, which we'll construct, but we don't want to buy deals that are in the lease up phase. And there's a lot of new construction that's for sale. So I can knock those off. So basically at the end last year, there was about 300 deals that came across my desk that fit what MC was looking for, either vintage, location, value add stuff, and deals like that. So I looked at 300 deals. The next step is I'm going to look at where they're located and in the submarket. And this is kind of where we start to do the real true analysis. This is the macro version of what I look for. We're going to look at big deals for us are demographics. I want to know local household income within the area, 1, 3, 5 mile radius. I want to look at how many of them have college degrees. I want to look at the big one for us is rent versus mortgage payment. How big is that delta? The bigger the delta, the more I want that property. I don't want people leaving when we raise rents because they can move down the street and buy a house and own and have the rent be the same as our mortgage. I'll look at crime statistics. These are all things that you want to understand about the area your building is going to be in, because those are the things you can't change, right? I can go in and I can change a building, but I can't change unless I have 50 semis. I can't pick this thing up and move it. So I need to love where it's at, or love something about it, or at least love where the area is going if I'm going to buy a building. And so before I even look at rent increases, before I even look at I can do cabinets or refrigerators, I got to love where this building is sitting. I want to look at what are the employers in the area? Do the employers fit our residents, right? We want to make sure that there's not employers in the area that don't have anything to do with the tenant base and the demographics that we're going to do. We talk a lot about walkability. We don't buy deep urban core, but there is still, even in what we consider suburban core, the desire for people to have easy access to the things that they want in their life. That's just where there is not real big sprawling suburbs anymore. Everybody has centers. You want to be near those retail. You want to be near those employers. People just want ease with what their living situation is going to be. So we'll look at transportation access. Is there a bus line nearby? Is there trains that they can get to downtown if they want to go into the core, but they can't afford to live in the core? What is the retail in the area? What is the ability? Honestly, how close is a grocery store is a big deal. Those are the kind of the things that we look for. What is the access to get to those? Can you walk? Can you take a bus? Again, proximity to the things that people need in life is a huge deal. Another thing we look at, especially in units that are heavy in 2-3 bedrooms, we love schools. That is a huge, huge, huge deal. We all know, those of us in here that are parents, we will do anything for our children. So if there's a rent increase and I want to be in that school area, I'm going to find a way to make that $100 rent, because I don't want to leave the school district that I'm in, especially in the public system in America. If you find a good public school, you are going to do whatever you can to stay in that public school. And also, normally, the great public schools are in areas where the housing is more expensive, so you get a double whammy. The growth between the rent and the mortgage is pretty steep. So you're going to get tenants that pay $800 and want to live there and willing to pay $9 because they want their kids to go to school with the people that own the $500,000 houses and can pay the taxes, that pay the school boards, and have the good education. That is a huge deal. Great schools, you have a tenant that's willing to stay, that's willing to pay, and most likely you're not going to have higher turnover because they want their child to stay in that school district throughout the tenure of their childhood. So you're going to get tenants that want to pay and want to stay. The other things I'll look at in the submarket are not just the property, but the occupancy for the submarket. What's the rent growth for the submarket? And make sure that you're looking at what the effective rent growth is, not the market rent growth, because market rent to me is a number that I don't really care about. It's what you think you can rent it for, what it should be. What I care about is what you are actually renting the place for. So I always look at what effective rent growth is. What are they physically paying to be in that place, not what somebody sitting behind a desk thinks that they'll pay for that place. Once I've kind of looked at those ideas and I've checked those boxes and they see that then moves me into looking at the property specifically. And out of the submarket deal, of that 300, there were 150 approximately that I wanted to then take a look at the actual property and pursue this further. When I'm looking at a property, the first thing I'm going to do, I'll pick up the phone and I'll talk to the broker and I'll get their 30,000-foot view of kind of what they see on this deal. The really good brokers, the ones that are the top in their field and the top in their game, they're going to give you pretty accurate information on what they think this is going to be. Their reputation is staked on it. There are some brokers, though, that you are listening to 8 minutes of BS about this property. You just need to figure out where it runs and how true it is. But the really good brokers, they're going to give you, for the most part, the information you need to get on where they think the property can go to. You just now need to go verify that information. I'll also get from them what they're kind of thinking on their guidance, where they want this price to end up, where they think it's going to end up. Interesting story. You get a lot more truth out of Arizona brokers than you do Texas brokers on where the price is going to be. And the reason being is Texas is a non-disclosure state. So they can tell you, this building is going to sell for $30 million. And at the end of the day, you can back channel your way in and try to find out what somebody paid for it. But you get a ballpark. Nobody really releases what they paid for it. So where you're in states like Arizona, where they publish what they sell for, a broker gets a really bad reputation if he says this building's going to sell for 30, and he says that on 5 buildings and they all sell for 25. So Arizona, they say this is what we think it's going to go for. That's pretty much where they're pretty accurate where it's going to go for. Once I talk to them and get the story, I'll enter the notes into my computer, start to build the profile of this property. The next step is I'm going to look at now the property in relationship to the submarket, right? We want to make sure they have retail. We want to make sure they have transportation. We want to make sure they have good schools. So now where is that property located in regards to those things inside those submarkets? How close is the property to retail? How close is the property to the schools? How close is the property to transportation and bus stops? What is the egress and ingress of the property? How is it visibly on the street? Are you going to get drive-by traffic? Is it settled back in the neighborhood? Is it right on a main road? These are all kind of the things you have to look at. And based on what you're looking at, if you're looking for more 2 and 3 bedrooms, sometimes being in a quiet neighborhood is where you want to be, a little bit off the street. I think drive-by traffic used to be a really, really big deal, right? Visibility, you have to be able to see it. How many walk-ins are you going to get? That is changing. You'll see with Eric how many Facebook and Instagram and Twitter feeds, and everybody has some sort of access to internet, and that is how you're going to find a unit. So while we look for where is it located on the street, it's more important how easy is it to get to versus how much frontage space do you actually have. There isn't a lot of, I'm just going to go drive and look for apartments nowadays. It's people do their research before and where they want to go. Once I've looked through those things, the broker then, I sign into a document center with my login information, and I can pull up all their financials, their rent rolls, their tax information. The brokers put together these beautiful 70-page photos of the property to tell you how wonderful it is, and they take pictures at night to make the property look better. And then the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to dig through the financials. I'm going to look for red flags, and I'm going to actually, at the end of this, I have 2 deals that have come across my desk in the last month. One that we didn't like and one that we really do like. This is actually the property that we had a phone call on yesterday. We should know hopefully on Monday or Tuesday if we're going to get it. But I'm going to show you through their financials kind of the things that we look for and the red flags. But I'm going to dig through the financials and see, again, having Leslie on board, I know in certain submarkets what those numbers should be per door, per unit. So I can look through a financial and actually see errors pretty quickly on, ooh, they're running really high there. What's their issue here? Why they have a loss to lease, which is the gap between the market rent and the effective rent. What they're getting is called loss to lease. Why are they missing that market rent number that people like to put up there? Why are they missing that? How much concessions are they giving? What is their vacancy? So I'm going to look through those numbers and through their financials and kind of get an idea and a broad picture of the property. Then the next step is I'm going to take their rent roll and I'm going to scrub their rent roll, because in the OM, the broker is going to give you the market rent, and that is it. He does not want you to know what the effective rent is. So I get big spreadsheets, and I have a system and a formula to flush out and get the effective rent. And I want to know not only what the effective rent is for the last 12 months, I want to know what it was for the last 3 months, the last 2 months, the last month, the last 20 leases. And I can break it down then based on each specific unit type, and I want to make sure that I'm seeing growth from the T12, to the trailing 12 rents, to the trailing 3 rents. But I also want to make sure I'm seeing that growth without a slip in vacancy, without having to add more concessions. Because a lot of people, sometimes they'll put a deal on the market and they'll say, wow, we've grown rents. Look where rents have gone. They've gone up 7%. Yeah, but you've dropped vacancy 3%, and now you're adding 2% in concessions. So I want to make sure that I'm seeing a steady flow of rent increase, but at the same time, they're being able to at least maintain occupancy and at least maintain where they are in concessions. Then the next step is I want to look through the comps, right? Because we're good, but you can't walk in and make a property something that it doesn't already have the bones to be, or that the market and the comps won't take in, right? If the 5 apartments around you, no one charges more than $800, you're not going to be able to go charge $1,100. It's just not going to happen. You can over-improve, you're going to throw in granite, you're going to throw in these things because you want to get that rent, but you're not going to get it. That submarket kind of will absorb what it can absorb. So I want to go see, I want to see what the comp set looks like, what their rents are, and I also want to make sure that somebody in the market has already tried, at least attempted to do this rehab. We don't need to go out and blaze trails here and be the first ones to go do it, right? We want to follow somebody who's done it, and there is at least a test out there, and we know that when we're putting your guys' capital to work, that there's a reason we believe this can happen, and there's somebody else that's been doing it, and we're going to follow that and just do it better than they did it. So I'll look at their comp sets. Again, the big one is the upgrades, and I want to look at what upgrades they've done. Do they compare to us? I always like to see somebody that's upgraded a little bit stronger than what we would want to do. If someone's already done granite, someone's already done these things, that's perfect for me, because I want to come in and do new cabinets, sprayed countertop, and just come in right underneath them, be just as good a quality. I just have you not with a granite countertop, and I know that I can go get the rents that I need to get. Once I've kind of looked at all of those and I understand the property and I've now decided that I want to take this further, I now get the property management team involved. And this is where the gears kick in and things get interesting and we can get down into the nitty gritty. So I'm going to walk over to Leslie's office, who is insanely busy, but every single time I've walked into her desk, she's like, I got time. What do you need to talk about? Every single time I've ever walked in, because we're dedicated to all facets. She's just running, her job is to run the properties, but she is just as willing to be helpful in making sure we acquire new properties. I'll go talk to Rick or to Mary, depending on if it's in Texas or Arizona. And then I'll also get, at that step, I'm gonna get Pam involved, who does our rents, and she'll show you, I think later today, these crazy giant spreadsheets. And she's gonna verify based on what we wanna, I'll tell her what I kinda wanna do with the unit. She'll give me, with her huge market knowledge, exactly where she thinks we can take rents to. And it's an incredibly detailed survey that I could never pull off with the amount of deals I need to see. So I send her the ones that we're really interested in, and I get an extremely comprehensive market survey. I've showed this to brokers before when we're in the buying process because they want to know that we have the surety to close, and they are incredibly impressed with how accurate and detailed our market surveys are. And the next step is I'm going to then go, once if I get Pam's numbers back, I get Leslie to look through the financials and help walk me through some of the red flags I might see and not understand. I'm then going to jump on a plane if it's in Texas or if it's in Arizona, get in my car, and I'm going to go tour the property. This is huge. This is why I've always been a big fan of buy where you know, because seeing and the feel of a property is just as important as the numbers. I always talk about how I love the multifamily business because for the most part, 95% of people have lived in an apartment at some point in their life. So how apartment, I don't care what the rents say, someone's done granite before, someone's done cabinets. I want to walk in and say, I like this floor plan, or I don't like this floor plan, because it's going to be the same to the tenant. They're going to feel I walk in and go, this is really cramped, I don't like this. The tenant's going to feel exactly the same way. Or if I'm impressed when I walk through the grounds and say, I think a sport court here would be great, or that kids play center is amazing, that's exactly what the tenant's going to see, and that is just as important as the hard financial numbers. So I'm going to go tour the property. I'm going to go get a feel for what I think the units look like, what the unit mix feels, how the grounds feel, where I can see improvements. And if I was a tenant there, what would I want done that's going to make this a better living experience for me? Because the better the living experience is, the more they want to pay in rent, the more they want to stay, the better the investment it is for us. When I go on those tours, I'm going to take this is why, again, having MC be all under one roof is incredible. So when I'm in San Antonio, a lot of you guys last year met Scott Pullen, who oversees 1,300 or 1,400 units under his watch. I'm going to take him with me on the tour because, again, I can go do all the research I need to do. I can go to every conference. I can go to every data and pull numbers and look through rent surveys. But physically eating, breathing, and sleeping and living in a submarket is the best knowledge you can give. You know your neighborhood, right, better than anybody else does. And so having our staff come with me and talk through deals is a leg up from my acquisition standpoint that I don't think any company has what we have. I get that inside knowledge. I get everything I need to get from them. And then either Andy will come with us if he's in town, or we have the construction crew that we use for our exterior CapEx. They'll come with me, and I let them go free for 2 hours on the property and wander around. And they give me, within 24 hours, a full report based on, other than having to got actually into units or onto the roof, they can give me a full report of what they believe our CapEx is going to be for exterior projects. Once I gather all that information, I'll fly home. I will then readjust my underwriting because, again, having seen the property versus what the numbers say, I'm going to have some changes. Maybe I think that Pam and I will sit down and I'll say, hey, I saw this, and she'll go, oh yeah, I know, maybe we should pull that rent back here. Or actually, no, I saw, it ended up being, the grounds are a lot prettier than what it looks like, or it sits in a better location than we thought. Let's move rents up $5-10. So we'll sit down and go over that. and then I can plug in the exterior CapEx numbers. And again, this is where I kind of start to hone in the underwriting. Once I kind of got the underwriting down, that's when I call Clay, and I'm like, Clay, give me give me the best deal you can give me, make this work. And Clay and his team, again, this is where you get the debt involved. None of this, you have to have everything kind of in order and ready to go before you make an offer. So I get Clay involved, and Clay is going to give me a term sheet with a bunch of different options because each property is different, or what our strategy is. Is it going to be a floating rate? Is it going to be a 10-year, 7-year fix? He wants to know, are we looking for max proceeds? Are we trying to get the most amount of debt? Are we trying to get IO? And so him and I have back and forth on what we're looking for. And so that way I can plug those numbers into my underwriting and kind of start to tweak where we want to see the returns go to and how best we're going to get there. And Clay, again, is always available, and him and I work through deals all the time, and it's an incredible process. Once we get past that stage, I've got the financials done, I've scrubbed the rent roll, I've got Pam's rent survey done, I have toured the property, I have locals that live in the area have signed off and said, this is, we love this street corner, this is where progress is going. Once we have all of that, that is when we submit an offer on the call to offer date. And last year, we made 56 offers on properties. That is aggressive. That is a lot of offers. And again, Ken and Ross have been, let's go. We want to get something done. We're just in a market, again, where we're chasing deals with people that have funds that have to deploy capital. It's sitting, burning a hole in their pocket. And that is a tough person to compete against, because we don't have to buy, right? We want to make sure we do one-off deals. We want to make sure the investment we put in front of you is a good deal. Not a fund where your money's already sitting there and we're like, gosh, we got to put it somewhere, so let's just put it here. And that's a dangerous group to be a part of on the other side, but it's also very hard to compete against. So we made 56 offers. Then the next step is you go to what they call a best and final. Now, this has changed dramatically just in the last 4 or 5 years. I talked with a broker about a deal here in Phoenix that was on the market 3 years ago. And it had 2 offers. It had 5 tours, and they had 2 offers. And that was the competition. It was on the market last year. It had 49 tours, and it had 19 offers on the same exact property just 3 years later, and nothing had changed. So now they take you what they call a best and final round, which is then they whittle down their 5 top offers. And that's all either going to be based on price or who you are as a company, and those 2 issues combined. In this business, a surety to close is a very big deal. Reputation is a very, very big deal. You don't want to award a deal to somebody and then have them go through the process, and 45 days down the road, it's gone, and then you have to put it back on the market. So you want to make sure that you get into deals and you're going to close, which is why we do all of the work that we do up front, because we want to maintain the reputation that we have created, which is we close. They'll ask you on a questionnaire, how many deals have you entered into and not closed on in the past 24 months? And I can write 0. And that is a huge deal, which is, again, why we put all the work in up front. We're not just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. We made 56 offers, and of which last year we're in 25 best and finals. That means we're in the top 4 groups on offers. Then at that point, they want to get on a phone call with Ross, Ken, and I, and they want to know about the company. They want us to explain our underwriting. They want us to explain what we're going to do with the property, what we have budgeted, which is also a big deal. If we're selling a property and one buyer comes in and says, we want to put in $4,000 a unit, we think we're going to see a $75 lift, and we've allocated $200,000 to exterior work. And the other guy says the same interior program, but he's dedicated $2,000 a door to exterior work. We're going to be much more apt to go with the guy who has the bigger exterior budget, because we know our property and we know it probably needs it might need a new siding or it might need new paint for the sale. And so that person has that budgeted in, and we know they've done their due diligence, and they're not going to come back during the process and negotiate with us on price because they've already budgeted in. We know that their numbers are solid. That's what we want to be on the other side when we're the buyer. We want to be what we like when we're the seller. And so you get the top 4 groups. We have an interview call. We discuss what our plans are with the property. They want to know if we have any gas left in the tank. We maneuver our offer. You can strengthen terms. And you can also start to put down non-refundable money. That, again, is a huge thing that we are up against all day, all the time. We had a deal. I don't know if we had sold that last year at the deal, but we had a deal. We were on the seller side of a deal in Tucson. And this gave me my first, I'd been now there for 4 months, but this was my first sale in multifamily. And I thought, this is how easy this is. This is amazing. But it goes to show you what we were against. We were selling a building. We had a group come in and offer us all cash, and they sent us 5 accounts that had $75 million each sitting in them and said, we have 15 more accounts just like this. We'll give you $2 million non-refundable on day 1, and we want to waive due diligence. We don't need to look at the building, and we want to close in 10 days. What? And we countered because we said we need 14 days to close. There's no way we can get this done in 10. We did counter, and they said, sounds good. But that's kind of what happens in the best and final round. So we're going to tweak our offers. We tend to go with stronger terms in the sense of due diligence because we are, again, a really efficient team. We did the Tucson 8 due diligence in 2 weeks, 10, 15 days. We did 1,500 units in 2 weeks. So that's kind of how what we use as our advantage is we can come in and we can get through our due diligence in 10 days, and then we'll have non-refundable money on the table. But we've seen the property. We know what is we know what the bones of it are. We've had third property tour it. We've had the bank tour it. But that's how we strengthen our terms normally in shortening our due diligence period. So we were in 25 best and finals. We got, after we did the Tucson 8, so that was 8 deals. But from April on, of the 25 deals, we got 1. That's how ridiculously competitive this market is. And this is also not only a sign of how competitive it is, but how disciplined we are. And that's what I love about being at this company, is the discipline that the 2 principals show with your guys' money. We're not going to stretch beyond what we think the deal is worth because we have to acquire. And that is directly responsible because that's why these 2 guys are where we are, and that is why I love being here, is that it is, again, principle-based. We get brokered all the time, like, you can't, come on, just another $1 million bucks, and we're just not going to do it. We don't have to acquire. We want to acquire things that we want, not out of necessity. I have been through this process, gotten to know a lot of the local buyers, and so we'll have conversations. Were you in on this deal? I wasn't on this deal. And the reason why it goes 25-1 is in this hot market, there's usually one crazy outlier. So there will be 5 of us in best and final. 4 of us were in the world of rationale, and there's one guy who's a little nuts. But we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep making offers on the deals that we like inside the parameters that we believe the deal can sustain, and we're going to get deals. And again, we'll know on one on Tuesday. So I want to kind of just quick go through 2 deals that have come across my desk in the last month. One we passed on, and one that we're in the mix, and we had a phone call, and we're in that best and final, and hopefully we'll be awarded the deal top of the week. So the first deal is a deal called Forest Hills in Austin, Texas. This is a vast majority of what I am seeing in a market like this, which is, they'll say, by the way, everything you see has the word value add on it. Every single deal. They can say, you can put in a chessboard in the clubhouse, and that's your value add, it's there. That's the key. Everything's a value add. So you need to dig in and find out what they mean by that. We look for true value adds, which are interior amenities that the tenant's going to want that can actually drive revenue. Again, shiny new pool, a good clubhouse. Those are things that you have to have because they're leasing tools, but they don't drive revenue as much as what your actual interior of your home looks like. So this deal came across our desk. It's in Austin. Austin is booming. It's a great place to hold or sell. It's a very difficult place to buy. So I'll scroll through the OM that she sent out. First thing it says, one of the things that popped out at me is 6.8% growth in rents. That's a big, big number. I think if you go over a last 10-year span, it averages 2.5%. So you would think that's a positive. That can also be a negative because at some point, Austin can only grow and the rents will taper off at some point. Again, the other thing that's on there is it talks about that they're close to central business districts and they're competing with rents that are in the 1,200 or, I can't quite, over $2 a square foot. That doesn't mean anything to me because we're not in the central business district. They're comparing us to the best part of Austin, and those renters are never gonna come rent at Forest Hills. If you can afford $2.52, there is nothing I can do to this property that's gonna make you, as a renter that can pay $3,000 a month, wanna come live here. So the broker's gonna throw that in there, but genuinely it means nothing. Another thing I noticed, again, central boiler system, right? We try to do, it's not an automatic no, but we would rather have individual water heaters. We will take on boilers, but there's just little things that add up. I learned a lesson from my stepfather who's a pilot, and he always said, there's never one thing, right, that crashes a plane. There's never one, it's the adding up of all the things that can go wrong. So I'm trying to get a list of, there's never one single thing that's gonna make me not wanna buy a property. It's the accumulation of those things that can take it down. So I'm just looking for little things. It's there's been strong rent growth, it's got boiler system, and then you'll see up here that it already has the appliance package. They've already done the flooring, they've done the cabinets, they've done the interiors of the unit. So to me, the value add has been sucked out of this deal. So basically what you're relying on at this point is the market. That's it. That's the only way you're gonna gain value on this deal is just ride wherever you think the market's gonna take you. Next, I'll go through their financials. Again, there's that lovely number, market rent. That is not what they're getting for rent. So just be aware, if you get deals, you wanna know what the effective number is, not the market number. You can see they're master metered, we like individually metered. These are all things that bring your expenses into control and make the property run more efficiently, which gives you guys more money. This is what I love. So this broker gave us on the right side is the last 12 months of financials. The middle column is the last 3 months of financials, but over the last 12 months, or the last 3 months of income, but over the last 12 months of expenses. That is how most deals are sold. You have a much better idea of what your expenses are gonna be if you use them over a 12-month period, not just the last 3 months, because sometimes you may have had extra carpet that needed to be replaced in the last month, so it'll annualize, that will mess up your expenses of where you're truly gonna run. So that is the column. The middle column is at what we are, or the market is buying off of. When it's a down market, it's the right column. When it's a hot market, you're buying off the middle column. But this broker, if you can see, I don't know if it's too small a print, but this broker on a deal that has the interior is done, that has very little value add, she's seen north of a $400,000 NOI growth. We looked at this deal and thought that's $140 a unit in rent growth. That's a lot for not having what I consider anything to drive the tenant wanting to pay $140, other than we're just saying we're just gonna arbitrarily raise your rents $140. The broker is saying that you're gonna raise the rents $180 from what's actually in place over the 12 months. Again, huge number that is justifiable if you're going to do something or you're going to create value in that property. So this is, again, there is the income. They're saying they're gonna grow rents 177 and 103 just on income. And then they believe you actually can affect the expenses as well. The biggest one I saw is payroll. Right now they're paying $273,000 a year in payroll, and the broker is saying that they can drop that down to $220. So that's going from $1,300 a door in payroll to $1,000 a door in payroll. Again, we just don't see that. That is cooking the books. If it's running at 1,300, especially a property of this size, which is under 200 units, you can't run a property for $1,000 a door that's under 200 units. It's just not possible. So this is how they're actually trying to create value, which is on the expense side. It's possible, but 95% of the time, where you are going to see your gains is on the income side, not on the expense side. We see it dramatically. We see it quite prevalently on our side when it's 200 units or more, because you're dealing with sophisticated operators that are running the building the way it's supposed to be run. So if you know, admin is $250 a month, that's what it is. You're not going to be able to come in and do it for $100. But brokers are a lot of the times are going to start tweaking those numbers quite significantly. If they are tweaked, you want to know why, and it better be a good explanation on why it's being tweaked, not just because we think we can do it. Oh, it didn't pop up. Anyways, so this is where the market, if you want to understand how hot the market is, I did on the right column their T3 income over what the year one expenses are actually going to be, not what the broker is telling me it's going to be. So I carried over what they're doing for admin, what they're doing for advertising. I've kept their payroll the same. I've tweaked their repairs and maintenance because they did their value add, a lot of it out of their running. So that is the 94,000 number is what they're spending on actual repairs and maintenance per year. That's not including the CapEx, which for some reason they put in this category and not in their capital budget. I've kept their contract services the same. Again, and this is Texas, so real estate taxes. They're paying $229,508, I believe that says right now in taxes. Because it's a non-disclosure state, we now get tax consultants involved because you have to best guess and make an educated guess with a tax consultant on what your taxes are going to be, because the county assessor has, they say, I think they have a magical way of finding out, but they say they have no idea what you paid for the building, and they're going to reassess you when they see a capital event. So the broker is saying the taxes are going to go from $229,000 to $361,000, which is actually under what we are seeing in Austin for taxes, and so we actually have them at $409. So taxes are going to jump a significant amount, and you have to be aware of what your taxes are going to be. Houston's pretty good right now. Dallas is pretty good. San Antonio, you have to adjust your taxes differently. Bexar County County Assessor is on a warpath. I don't know if his girlfriend dumped him and he's angry, but I mean, he is not a happy camper. So we'll, in San Antonio, we'll do 95% of purchase price or 90% of purchase price of what we think the assessor is going to put the value of the property at. Houston and Dallas, you can go down into 85 or 80%. Again, though, the broker gave us that number and put in with asterisks that this is an estimate, but doesn't tell us how they got there. And based on what they think the building's going to go for, those numbers don't even add up. You end up at 409. So once we put in what we believe their year one actual expenses over their T3 income, we end up with an NOI of $745,411, and the broker is telling us that in year one you can get to 1.2 million. So I had the numbers up there. What we're trying to buy it at, what we think it is, we don't want to buy it, but if we were to make an offer based on what they say the building is worth, they're trying to sell this for a 4.8 cap, renovated with no other than market growth, based on their actual T3 income over their expenses, where their taxes stand now. I take that back. The broker is trying to sell it at a 5 cap. The actual T3 over the actual T12 expenses, they're trying to sell it at a 4.8 cap. But if you put it under their income with what we know expenses are going to be, they're trying to sell it for a 3.84 cap. They wanted $21 million for this deal. And that's what you're up against. And that's what a lot of the deals I see. And there's nowhere to add value to this. So we're not going to chase a low cap rate on something that we see no way for us to what Ken calls force equity. So this was a pass for us. We don't want to buy something in the 3.8 cap. We'll buy low caps, but we have to have a way for us to move the NOI that we have control of, that we can sit down as a team and say, this is how we're going to make this property better and drive revenue. if we bought this property, we would say we're going to have to run it exactly as it is, cross our fingers, and say, let's go Austin. So this is the deal that we had the phone call for on Friday in Mesa, right here locally. I have toured it. I got our maintenance staff to go with us. Pam has given us a rent survey. Ross and Ken have both walked the deal. So all hands on deck on this one for sure. These are the things that I've noticed. The broker says $5,000 a door for $100 rent bump. So that automatically gets my attention. So my job is to go verify and make sure that's possible. What I like about this is that you see in the second blue box down that they've done 50 units with this. So there is a track record. I can go look at their rent roll and scrub through and see if that number is legitimate. Are they getting $100 rent increase? And they are. And on the last 3 months of rentals are actually getting upwards of $120 a month. So that right there makes me want to pursue this further. I'm going to look at that and say, we want to be a part of this if the numbers make sense. There's the property with the W on it. We talked about it being location inside of a submarket, right? There is a brand new office space, if you can see the number 1 at the top left there, up against the property, that they believe in the next 3 years, it's a beautiful building, is going to have 1,200 employees. And they are call centers. Again, we love it because it's not office space that's going to have a ton of bankers who make 90 grand a year. It's call centers. So here we are going to have employees that are perfect renter base coming in, 1,200 potential renters coming into that location over the next 3 years. Down the road, we've got banking services. We've got the Mesa Financial Plaza, the Fiesta Mall. And what they're doing really interesting with the Fiesta Mall is, if you notice, number 10 is the Fiesta Corporate Campus. They have actually turned, and this is what a lot of regional malls are struggling. Sears is in trouble. So you're seeing a lot of redevelopment of these malls into corporate plazas, and they're trying this with the Mesa one, and they're turning that Macy's into an actual corporate headquarters. For corporate headquarters for Macy's in Arizona is going into that corporate center. So you're going to see a lot of struggling malls trying to redevelop themselves and rebrand themselves, and a lot of them are going to corporate and medical offices, and we're really excited about that. In this area, we have an idea where we want rents to grow, and if that Fiesta Mall becomes anything what they're claiming it's going to be, that's just the icing on the cake for us. We think the deal works as is, but we love it if that thing booms, then that's all gravy. There's a Target right across the street, so people can walk and get the things that they need. Target now does grocery services, so that is a great place to go buy fresh produce. That is a great place to buy your needs for your family, and it is directly across the street from the property. So these are kind of the things that we look for when looking at a deal. That is the office space, the call center that's adjacent to the property. Again, this is now still facing south, but west instead of east. Again, across the street from the property, Mesa Community College, 21,000 students. We do not house students. It's not a student housing deal, but they can, up to 20% of the tenants can be students before you start to get into issues with your loan. So that is a tenant base, as well as employees, teachers, janitors, grounds crew. That's just an employer base that we get to pull from. And then my favorite of all of them, we are huge fans of anything near medical. We believe that the medical industry is, as we have an aging population, is only going to become bigger and more prevalent. And so this is right down the street from Banner Medical District and the Children's Medical Center. And those are the two deals. And again, huge employer bases to pull from for nurses and technicians, things like that. Again, we just like the fact that these are all within a 3-block radius. These are the things that you look for when you're trying to buy a building. The other thing that we love about this, they have completely redone all of the exterior of the building. So all that's left to do is the interior. So they have genuinely a Class A fitness center already done. That's not going to come out of the buyer's pocket. A clubhouse, pool table, shuffleboard that gets used fairly regularly. One of the best dog parks I've ever seen. They've done the artificial turf. It's shaded. great pool with great pool furniture. So these are the things that we see that we like because it's been done, right? So the renter that is going to be able to afford the $100 rent increase is going to want that, but we're going to give it to them, but only have to do the interior, and they're going to take the rent increase because they got the new interior, but they also have these wonderful amenities that don't drive rent. They're what we call the leasing tool. So when they walk the grounds, these are the things that we have, and that entices the renter to want to rent. Where we get the rent increases, they see all these beautiful things, now they want the interior to match that, and that's how we drive the revenue. So here's the two property comparisons and why we like one and why we don't like the other. So what each property has going for it or doesn't have. So we know that Forest Hill will have market growth. We have ideas and guesstimates of what that market growth is going to do. A crystal ball is about 3 years out. If someone tells you they know where we're going to be in 10 years, they're lying to you. But we do have market growth. It could be 1%, it could be 5%, but the property will go where the market goes. So does Whispering Meadows. It has the market growth. Where the difference is Forest Hill has no forced equity. Why Whispering Meadows has forced equity because we have a way for us internally to drive revenue that's in our control. Forest Hill has cap rate exposure. Because it's driven by the market and we have no way to drive revenue other than following market growth, if we buy this at a 4 cap and cap rates go to 5 or 6, we have an increased NOI and now we're upside down on a property. So we're exposed to the fluctuations in cap rates. Whereas if we force equity, there is cap rate exposure, but we significantly reduce our how much that can damage us, because if we raise NOI $500,000, we can still take a cap rate bump of a point or a point and a half and still be above water and still generating and sell where we need to sell in order to give you guys the returns that you want to get. So difference is Forest Hill, specifically you get the growth of the market plus absolutely zero additional value if you buy it. Whereas with Whispering Meadows, you get the market growth plus we said 387 units remaining to be renovated at $100 a unit, comes out to an extra NOI of $464,400 a year. And if you do that at a 6 cap, that is $7.74 million of additional value that we have added to the property that we are in absolute control of, and we can make that happen, and the market will have an effect on it. But even if we come in and the market goes down, Forest Hill, the market's down. If Whispering Meadows, if the market goes down and we only get 75 instead of 100, we're still pushing additional value and ahead of the game much further with Whispering Meadows than we would have been with Forest Hill. So again, this is kind of how we operate. Whispering Meadows is the kind of deal that we're going to look at. These are the kind of deals we want to put in front of you, that we have control over, that we can move, and that we can utilize the expertise and the in-house staff that we have. By buying a deal that's Forest Hill, we're wasting what we have on the inside that can turn properties and make them into something great. So,
great, big hand for Charlie. Definitely. Let's keep that right where it is.
yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of a day in the life of Charlie. So one of the things that I want to point out, I'm just gonna, I think it's one of the most important things is on the. First of all, I know some of the numbers are hard to read. We have those for you. Happy to give them to you. This project, the Forest Hill project, is a small local brokerage company, and struggling to get listings. And they're going to put out numbers like this. It happens every day, every market. The Whispering Meadows is going to be your national brokerage companies, like Tyler, who's about ready to talk. You're not going to get this kind of garbage in a presentation package because we're all just pretty busy, and we don't want to go through the retrade process. So, what you're going to see next is Tyler talking about CBRE. They're not going to put out a package like Forest Hill. They don't want to waste your time or their time. So, but I want you to know that they're out there all the time, and and they're you know,
They're a majority of what's out there.
yeah, there's a lot of them out there. So you know, when you you know, this is a very it can be a very efficient system, and you know, when you start to see these packages that are out from these national brokerage firms, you know, like Tyler's, it's going to be the way it is. You're not going to get, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're not going to get what you just saw in the first round on the Forest Hill side. But you need to just understand that I would say over half the deals are like that, right? Mm-hmm. Easily. So, so when you get an opportunity to work with some of the bigger brokerage houses, it's actually a lot more efficient and a lot better experience, right?
Agree.
So big hand for Charlie. Thanks.